you can hear me at this point. It's always a challenge, especially at this time in the morning, which is 7:30 here in Toronto. Yeah, I'm just trying to get things organized here. Oh, that's good. Thank you, James. Yeah, just have a little bit of setup here to do while we're waiting. As usual, there's somebody else in there. Hot Dog Andy, how are you today? As usual, I spent an hour or two setting up last night, checking that the trains were running and that I'd got my cameras located and set up. But of course, some things you can't calculate for. And I was in panic mode for a few moments this morning as I couldn't get the computer to start. I was a bit confused about this because I've got this Zooping uh, plug-in for the various components added into my laptop, and it was plugged in, and my external hard drive and a little light that I've got were on, but the computer wouldn't come on. So I was trying everything, making sure the main power was on, etc. And as I got closer to production time, I looked down and saw that the main plug for the laptop was unplugged. So there's always something. So everything seems to be working okay. Mark, how are you? Welcome. We had a bit of a thunderstorm last night. My wife had gone out into the garden uh, about 8 o'clock to water the flowers because we've had a dry spell, and around about 9 o'clock, the sky's lit up with lightning, but that's the way it is. A little bit of a derailment there. Just hang on a second. We'll just these things happen. So, how is everybody today? Oh, it's raining there, James. Um, yeah. Yeah. You know, even after a good cleanup and brushing the track, it never ceases to amaze me what you find on the track when something derails. Uh, good, uh, good housekeeping is very important, and attention to detail, because you just never know what's fallen over or what gets picked up by the local. Seem to have a little issue here. And of course, not every local or coach likes a particular point, and that seems to be the problem this morning with the 125 and a particular coach. Mystic John, good morning and welcome. So, James, are you located in Dundas? I might have asked you that before, because I think it's getting a little bit cloudy around about here in Richmond Hill, where I am. So I've changed the cameras around a little bit just to give you a different view. And running a couple of different trains. And as I said, it's under the wires this morning. And let's see if I can show you why I've called it that. Yeah, so you can see here, I have the two catenary systems up. This first one here was the original fabrication that I made when I first thought of doing this. I just made it out of foam core to give me an idea of the span and the height. And then I'll just move this. As you know, I made the masts for this catenary, and then I purchased the kit for the headspan, albeit it only included the headspan when I thought it would have included the mast, but nevertheless, glued it together, painted it, and it looks quite good. There may be some adjustments required moving forward, and that would be the height of the head span to make sure that I've got clearance as the train passes through. Because there is a specific distance from the hangars that transfer the power into the local. And I think I've got that now. And as I move forward and make more of these catenaries, that I'll get it right. But as I've said, I won't be adding power to it, of course. This is just to give the idea that, yeah, in Britain in the 60s, we were moving forward with catenary systems. And I remember in Glasgow specifically, in the 60s, they were going through the process of electrifying the blue train line that ran around Glasgow. Morning, Digger. How are you? On Piccadilly Model Railways. Okay, so I was going to get round to this. So I had been chatting with John about a couple of things. I had a whole bunch of questions for him about his catenary system and his 3D printing. Now, as you know, I do have a 3D printer, and let's just see. If you look around the railway, you'll see I've got relay boxes. Just wait till the train passes. Yeah, the relay boxes I did following watching John's first video on 3D printing and modeling in Tinkercad. Now, I had dabbled in it before and had printed off a couple of things, but then I decided, well, I'll have a go at this. Another thing I did was I downloaded this file and printed that, and it turned out really good. Painted it up, and makes a great addition. So that's an easy job. You just download this file if you're not familiar with the process. I think it was on Thingiverse. Now here's another item. This tank is pretty large, and as you can see, it had some faults, but that's not important because you're not going to see that. And I built this model myself, so that just demonstrates what you can do if you put your mind to it. Now, having said that, I used to do this stuff for a living years ago. So as I was explaining to John yesterday, with the various types of software, AutoCAD, Tinkercad, Cults, Bentley systems, you know, there's a whole myriad, Blender, etc. And while I was working, one of the things I did was I did a spreadsheet and did a comparison of all the commands that would be used regularly by the users on projects I was looking after. And that made it simple. So, you know, they may have come into the office as AutoCAD users, but we were using Bentley software, which is a more powerful piece of software that runs from a database, and we could do projects globally. So we could have project teams working on it around the world. Like, as an example, an office in Mumbai and an office in Australia plus our own office here in the Toronto area. So it made it easier for people to quickly transfer their skill sets from, let's say, AutoCAD into Bentley systems. So, yeah, and what else? There's some oil drums that I 3D printed. Very simple. And you know, these models that I made, they are available on Tinkercad. If you search for me, you probably find it. And you're more than welcome to use these. And that's it's kind of free market out there. And there are some pieces of luggage that I printed. Now, the oil drums I actually modeled and then printed them. So, you know, you can have a go, as you saw from John's terrific video yesterday of the cantilever and how simple it is to fabricate these models. Simple components. You start out with a cube and you change the dimensions into a rectangle, a length of material. You can put a ball in, a sphere, punch holes in things. You can do all kinds of stuff to make it your tool and your designs. And as I said later last night to John, that yeah, you know, along the lines of there are different methods on how to do things. If you remember the masts that John built, well, you can do them 100 different ways. John just showed you his method and a simple method to put it together. Now, another way to do it would have been to construct that length of material representing the mast and then punch holes in it, the rectangular openings. That would have been the same thing. So it's really a case of getting your mind around what you can do with the tools and experimenting. Now, that is a purchased item that I got at George's Trains, and it's really very, very good. And I believe, yeah, this one was done with a resin printer because you just can't get that level of detail with the isolators there if you use a filament printer. But that's a great example. So there's another little example that you could make. It's a cylinder or a rod with a dome on either end, and then you put some feet on it. That's just a little section of steel, let's say, and then for the access door, once again, it would be a cylinder and a circle. So, you know, you can build that easily. So let's see what's going on. There's Jake Good morning, Jake. Hot dog Andy, fair to middling. Is it raining there, Andy? Well, here's a note from John I'd like to read out. Yeah, well, I, I agree, John, because when you punch holes in things, um, I think you're reducing the area uh, of the print when it's first applied, and maybe you're reducing the cross-sectional strength of the section. But you're correct. Um, uh, your method of constructability is probably better. But as I said, I was just pointing out another method. That was it. So you see, there's a myriad of ways to do things, but you know, more often than not, the simplest way is the best. The less complicated, the better. And for constructability, um, it's probably in your best interest as a newbie to the software, um, that you follow that example that John gave you. And then as you become more confident, you try other things. Uh, right now, uh, my printer, which is a monoprice, um, has a little bit of an issue. Uh, Last year, my plate cover was destroyed. I'm not sure what caused it. Possibly, possibly the fact that I might not have applied sufficient amount of glue on top of the surface to allow the mat of the build to be laid. And when I was removing it, it tore up that cover. So, um, now I'm faced with repairing it. And one way I've found you can do is take uh, uh, blue painter's tape, like this, but only wider, right? Get a wider one, which I did buy, and covering the plate with that, and that enables you to continue on, or buy a couple of the manufacturers' um, ones you can get on Amazon. Overslept, Andy. Thought you were always up at the crack of dawn. Uh, Generally speaking, I, I waking up about 6:30 every morning, uh, without fail. So this is a good time for me to come down to the basement, um, and do a video, at least get set up to do it. Now, as you move forward in your adventures in 3D modeling and printing, you could make something like this, because that was made from, I can't remember if it was a toilet roll or maybe a tube. There was a Christmas wrapping around it. And then I added in little bits and pieces that you could actually fabricate, build in Tinkercad and put it together. So it's kind of limitless what you can do. And, you know, you could put logs together, get that in view, right? Simple stuff. Or ties. You can make these yourself, as I did, but as an example, you could build it in Tinkercad and just overlap them, stack them, and then print it. And you know, here's a close up. It's very simple, easy to do. So what I did there was made a cylinder, and then I put a couple of rings around it. You can see that closely enough. And then, of course, you can make multiples of them. Oh, and here's another thing. Look at that. Now, I downloaded that and then printed it. And it's perfect. It sticks onto the, or snaps onto the rail. I mean, that's a great example. Now, think about it. This here is the girder for the Hornby station cantilevered roof. And, you know, what John showed you when he built his headspan, this is the exact same procedure. So you could take that and make it as a girder for a bridge. Really simple. And yeah, you know, this is the plate girder was a purchased item, and the beam below it is plasticard with some pipes added. Now, you could build this in Tinkercad, no problem. Just think about the simple shape. And you could build that. Yeah, Andy, I get it. When I was working, I would get up at 5:30, and I would. There's another guy who lived in the area that we would do the commute together, and it took us an hour's driving, mostly on the highway, for an hour going west and sort of southwest from where I am. And then in the evening, it would take us an hour and a half to get back because of traffic. And when we had snowstorms, it could take 2 or 3 hours sometimes to get home. So I just got into the habit of getting up at that time, like you described yourself. And yeah, I just never broke that habit. Plus, you know, as you get older, medications, I find I don't need as much sleep. Um, so, you know, I generally get up no later than 7. That's just the way things are. I was never one for having a long lie, as they would say. So, yeah, I would be interested to see. I know Digger's um, got a 3D printer now, and he's probably biting at the bit to get at it. Um, I, I look forward with bated breath to see what you come up with, Digger. And anybody else who gets into it, it'd be great to see what you produce, and you know, uh, the availability of files to be passed around within the community. As I said, help yourself to whatever I've built that you can find on Tinkercad. Um, there's no cost. Just download it and print it. Adjust it to whatever suits you. Um, those oil drums they're the perfect size dimensionally for double O gauge. Remember, you can also change the scale um, in the settings if you wanted to go to N gauge. And just go into Tinkercad and search for model railroad stuff, and you know, a host of things will come up. Oh, that's terrific, Digger. Terrific. So I'd like to see what you've produced. Um, uh, the resin printer is so much more accurate, but it's a bit of a chore, as you have obviously found out, and how to use it. Um, you know, the cleaning and curing, etc., etc. Um, and the filament printer is is a no-brainer, um, sort of plug and play. Um, yeah, Andy, just pull this up. So on that point, Andy, here in Toronto, I'm not sure why that's not focusing. Yeah, I'm not sure what the issue is there. Um, there you go, that's better. So here in Toronto, and probably in the UK, they've got this system called Eventbrite. and it's an organization that pulls together all the offerings of presentations, courses, free and also for a cost. And there's an app out there you can download and sign up for, and it gives you a daily update of what's available in your area. So the one day I had an opportunity to visit a company about a half hour's drive from here. And this company were doing 3D printing using steel. Now, like, how would they do that? Well, this was so interesting. One of their major clients was BMW, and they were making small components for them. So how the process worked was, if you consider a 3D filament printer, and the plastic PLA or ABS, whatever it is, going down into that nozzle, being melted and then dropped onto the plate. Well, in this particular case, what they had done was they had designed it so that the metal of choice was surrounded by a plastic tube, and as it went into the head, it would melt, or it was the steel rod would go in, and then from the sides the plastic material would come in. And if you're familiar with Cura, as John described, that's where the system layers your print, and it could be hundreds of layers required to make your component. So you could see this being done, and the plastic case basically was designed to allow for contraction of the materials, because when you get steel and plastic, they cool down at different temperatures, and expansion and contraction is quite different, as you would imagine. So when they completed the print, they would take it off the plate, and then they would put it into an oven that would reduce the temperature, so it was cooling the components. And when it was brought down to normal temperatures and removed from the oven, they cracked the plastic and out popped the steel component, perfect shape and form. It was incredible. So it is out there, and they're coming up with new concepts every day. And in fact, I did read an article that they're using it to 3D print chocolate. And I'm in for that. It wouldn't last long around here, but yeah. Well, these companies like Scale, Hornby, Bachman, etc. Now, they now do their modeling with high-end software, Proton, or can't remember, but I used that software. At one time, we were experimenting with it. Now, we were designing mineral mining processing facilities, where the software that these companies are using are basically for designing widgets to a higher degree of accuracy. And I'm not sure what size those files would end up being. It could be large, or maybe the system has changed it where the data isn't that large. Now, the one thing is, they'd be afraid that we as a community would be wanting to print our own coaches and locomotives. And the likelihood of that are pretty remote at the moment, because there's not enough of us out there fiddling with 3D printers, let alone 3D modeling. And the other thing is, you'd be restricted by the size of your plate and what you could model. But that's not an issue, because things change and improve, and before we know it, we'll have a 2-foot square plate and which to print. So as the technology develops, the price will ultimately come down, and all these things. The monoprice printer that I've got, I think it cost me $200 US, and that was 4 or 5 years ago. We had been using it in the office. Now, I've been retired 8 years, and I think 5 years before that, we were using a 3D printer. And how this worked was, they created a model, it went into the system, and it was used, it was like a powder in a block, and the head would blow away the powder as it was carving out the model that you had designed. And it was very, very hard by the time it had set. And we used it to describe parts of a dam that we had designed, and using different colors, which was the other thing. We could highlight what the pores were for the concrete dam, so that the client and the contractor could analyze how they were going to build it. So that's going back 10, 13 years. But one other thing along the lines of technology, we could model every component in the facility and tag it. So the tag would have all the data for, let's say, a piece of machinery, a pump, and I'll use that as an example. Now, that pump would have an ID number, as well as having data for each and every element that makes up that component. And then what could be done was, in the model, and we'd have it up on the big screen, and we could set the camera up within the computer and then walk through. In other words, you set the camera up in the software where it's at eye level, and then You just use your mouse or pad to maneuver through the model, and you can turn, look up, look down. You've all seen the games. Well, it was along the same lines as that. And what we could do is we could tap on a component, and it would a pop-up would show, and it would tell you what that element was and all the relevant metadata that went along with it. And we could start with that element in the software model, and then we could track it as it gets manufactured and gets sent out for delivery, shipped to the site. It lands in the site, it's put in a storage area, and then it's transported to the build within the facility and installed. And this would all be translated into the schedule. So just phenomenal stuff that was going on, and so interesting. Another thing I was thinking of was, I look at all the new channels that pop up, model railway channels, and always go in and have a look at them, give them a like and subscribe. Right, that's what it's all about. Now that's great, but your average user is not 100% clear on how they should proceed in building their channel. The SOEs and names that you should be using while you're posting, all this kind of stuff. And you could spend endless hours trying to find information on how to grow your channel. But right before us, in plain sight, is, I think, some of the answers. And that is that everybody out there has got their own method of posting a YouTube video and setting up their channel. And, do you often wonder why one channel does so much better than the other? And at first glance, it doesn't appear to be anything special. You get people who will show themselves on the screen, and I'm just going to do that right now, if I can. Yep. So a lot of guys will do this, and they'll chat all the way through, while on the other screen there, they've got the trains running. Well, not everybody's into doing that, and not everybody is into showing themselves. They're not comfortable chatting online, and so there are different ways of doing it, but there must be other ways. Is it the tags that you put in? Is it the description, the keywords? We're not really sure. And I know a few social media people, because my daughter's one, and she was always saying, "Oh, Dad, you should do this, you should do that," and there's a myriad of things you could do, and maybe what we can all do is share that information so that the new user can adopt a mixture of methods that everybody else uses to see if it helps them generate more views. Now, that would be something worthwhile. Okay, bye, Digger. Thanks for dropping by. So there, I saw a couple of shunter models uh, when I was looking around yesterday that you can download, and you can do that, and that would help you get an idea how the system works. Downloading the model, putting it in a slicer, and watch it slice in the model on the screen, and then transferring that to your printer. Um, Practice makes perfect. YouTube channel. Yeah, absolutely. They never tell you any secrets, because maybe there are no secrets. It's just something that they've learned. I mean, my daughters get her and her husband. They've got millions of viewers, millions. Um, but the son-in-law is an actor, uh, producer, director, and my daughter is an interior designer, and her career is built around uh, her interior design, and that's what her channel is about. Um, so it all depends on the niche that you're in, and yeah, there's no magic wand. The logarithm might just shine on you one day, and you might never be a millionaire, uh, but you may get a lot more viewers. And that's the other thing. With monetization uh, comes other responsibilities. I was given the opportunity of being a YouTube associate, and I accepted that offer and went through the process. But I never made a brown cent, because there was obviously something I wasn't doing correctly. And after 3 months, uh, they withdrew the status of being a YouTube Amazon associate, um, and they said you can try again in 3 months or 6 months, whatever. Um, so yeah, there's all kinds of opportunities and offers out there, but yeah, you're never going to get rich doing model trains. Um, I guess it's a passion that we all have, and that we like to share and talk about within the community. Why else would you do it? But the thing is, uh, you're like a movie producer. Uh, you've created this little world in which time moves and things move within that time, and people can relate to it because they look at your model and they say, yeah, I've been there, it looked just like that, and I remember taking that train, and so on and so forth, right? So that's what it's all about. Now, here's something you can make. Granted, I made this out of coffee sticks, etc., and a piece of plastic card for the base. But you could build that, make a 3D model of it, and building. And when you look in the magazines, there's lots of stuff that has got lots of stuff that have got engineering diagrams or sketches of buildings, whatever, with dimensions. So you can copy that too. Let's see here. Yeah, exactly, John. You look at Sam, and Sam's taken a totally different approach, and he's very good at it, and he deserves the accolades that he gets and the following. He's worked hard at it, and he's consistent. You know, absolutely no question. And Charlie Chadwick, I'm a great admirer of Charlie, because he's got a system there. I love his opening with the camera simulations, and then his method of presentation and the subject matter and how he breaks it down. Yeah, so much to be learned from these guys. And yeah, you know, they deserve the following that they get. And is there a secret? I don't think there's a secret. Just, I think it's coming up with hard work and the format, and how you do it, and the consistency of the format and the regularity of your presentations, and you know how it comes across. Now, one could go into Sam's site and replicate what he does on any given subject. That doesn't mean that immediately you're going to be a success, because the algorithm doesn't work that way. And the same would apply to Charlie at Chadwick. You could do a setup just like he's done and just follow it through on your own layout. Now, you may get lucky one time and hit a load of people. Like here today, there are 7 viewers on there. Now, the Moore man, good morning and welcome. Where are you tuning in from? I guess that's the first question. What was I going to say there? Yeah, I lost my train of thought on that. But basically, you're not going to get millions of viewers just because you copied somebody's format, but it might help you with the process of producing your house. Springfield, are you in Springfield? Sarah, the Savannah, and the Atlanta 750. I've been in Savannah. What a beautiful place that is. Gorgeous. We spent 5 days down there, and actually went to the Railroad Museum there, which was really interesting. But beautiful city. And I took the tour of the art school in the old theatre in there, and they did a fabulous presentation of what goes on at the art school. So, Sarah, what do you have down there? What kind of a layout do you have? And thanks for dropping in, by the way. I guess the other question is, how did you find this channel? See, that's an interesting question. If you go into your analytics, you'll see that some people found you via a search for a subject matter. Some got a link from somewhere else. The various reasons how people find you. So it's always interesting to know. And if anybody's going from the UK over to the US, if you're going to Florida, as an example, I would fly into Atlanta, and then from Atlanta, get over to Savannah. And then from Savannah, you can go down to Florida, because, you know, talk about going with the wind. Savannah is a beautiful city, town, beautiful place, full of history if you're into the American Civil War, as I am. There are lots of interesting things to see. I'll just show you some of the locos that are sitting here on the shelf. Plus, you know, I've got stuff in boxes, organized and unorganized. Never enough space. Yeah, thanks more, man. I appreciate you dropping by. Maybe we'll see you another time here at Partickhil Station. Yeah, that's true. Well, here's an example. If you look at the Monday Club, which I generally watch, they have a substantial number of participants on the chat line. I don't recognize everybody that are on there. I recognize some of them, including yourself, but lots of people I don't recognize. And I do make a point of trying to go into their channel and see what they're up to. And of course, same with Instagram. I post on Instagram both some of the artwork that I do and the model trains. Now there's a specific time when they suggest that you get the most viewers, and there's a little chart there that tells you a time frame. I guess what you're trying to do is get people at the most opportune time in the UK that might be at, let's say, 6:30 p.m. your time or 7 p.m. Meanwhile, on the west coast of the US, that's 8 hours behind. So, you know, kind of strike a balance of what you want to target. But Instagram is different, and it's changed also. I used to get more views and likes than I do now, and once again, I think it's the algorithm that changed. It's not that the content that I put up there has changed, because that remains basically the same. I show pieces of art that I do primarily of cars, but you know, I do ships and trains and aeroplanes, and then I throw in stuff about the model railway. Well, look, guys, I've been on here for just over an hour, and as I said before, I don't want to hog YouTube. I don't want to encroach on other modeler YouTubers. So I will sign off and thank you profusely for participating this morning, because, as I said, I know there's lots of competition out there. And once again, a big thanks to John at Piccadilly for that tremendous tutorial that he did. And let's all jump in and get modeling and 3D printing. So I'll see you next time here at Partickhil Station.